Okay, perfect. All right, well, good day, everybody. Welcome to another Gimmal education session. My name is Marcia Shields, and I'm from our customer success team. Our goal for these sessions are really to help you address your business challenges and demonstrate how our Gimmal software can help. Hopefully, by the end of these, you'll increase your expertise on the software so you can better leverage it. As you saw, we are recording this session, and it will be shared after the event. I'm going to welcome Dean Meisenheimer with me today. He's going to be your subject matter expert and will be demonstrating our Gimmal Records product for today's session. Dean's going to be showing you different options you have when creating or maintaining record classes or categories. We typically do about 15 to 20 minutes of product demonstration, followed by 10 minutes for questions. So feel free to post your questions during Dean's demonstration. You can use the Q&A area down in the bottom of your Zoom bar. That would be fine. And then we'll address those after the session. Dean, I think that's it. I'm going to pass it over to you for now.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Do we have a poll that we want to run?
No, I think I'm going to scrap that for the moment.
Okay, then we will get started. So let me switch the screens here. There we go. So I think everyone is familiar with this screen, Gimmal Records. And our focus today is going to be around the file plan. So I'm going to go into the file plan section of Gimmal Records. And basically what we're going to talk about is just kind of how to manage it, some of the options for setting up the structure, hopefully some tips that make it a little easier for you to manage and maintain your file plan. You can see here, I've actually got two different file plans set up, right? So I use different file plans for different demos. I have the general record schedule that's put out by NARA. That's one of my file plans that I have in here. I also have kind of the big bucket approach to file plan management, and that's the one I'm going to use for the demo today. But basically my file plan here is my structure on how I want to organize and manage my records. You notice when we're in the file plan screen, it's really easy, very visual. Anything with a triangle next to it indicates that I can expand it out. I can close it by just also clicking the triangle. So it makes it really easy, to come in here and kind of navigate around. Now, let's start with the basics. How do we create a new record class or even a new category? So let's say I have my big bucket schedule, I have my general record schedule. Maybe I want to create a whole new category for testing or for practice. Well, if I click the Create button here at the top, it will let me create a new category, and I have to give it a record class code. So we will just put that in there and click Create. And now you see I have my new category here, right? So you can create a new category. If you want to create record classes, and if you decide, oh, no, I didn't really want to do that, we're just going to come in now and say delete, get rid of it. Now we're back to what I started with. Okay. So create here at the top creates brand new categories. What if I want to create a new record class category underneath Big Bucket record schedule already? Or what if I want to create a new record class under administration? Well, rather than clicking up here, you can come in at any level of your file plan. If I wanted to create a new record class here under administration, I can come in, click on the pull down, and hit create. And guess what? I get the exact same form, right? So there's consistency in the form, regardless of what level you are creating your category or your record class. So let's create a new record class. We're going to call this one ADM 99 Education. Again, I have to give it a unique record class code. So we'll just use ADM 99. right? It has to be something that hasn't been used before. And the system will tell you if you try and use one over again. And now we're going to come in and put in descriptive information. I'll talk about priorities a little more. Basically, priority, by default, everything is 100. And I suggest you leave things at 100, unless there's a good reason to change it. And all priority does is say, when Gimmal Records is going through processing your classification rules, looking for a match, if everything's priority 100, it just kind of walks through from the top down, and when it finds a match, it assigns the record to that record class. If you had a record class you wanted to have processed sooner than others, you could lower the priority to 90 or 80 or 70. Again, use that sparingly, because you can really get your order of precedence kind of out of whack if you start playing with the priority on every record class. Only do it if you need to. Description is just descriptive information. This is what's in the record class. Whatever you want to put here, maybe copy and paste out of your retention schedule spreadsheet. What organization? Well, we're going to say this particular record class falls under the domain of administration. Notes, this could be legal citations. This could be more information about what's stored here. Again, these three fields are just free-form text. You can put whatever you want to in there, right? And then there's all the properties about how this record class is going to manage records that get assigned here. So the first, and I'm going to work from the bottom up. The first is case-based. By default, a record class is administrative. Records are assigned there, and the records are managed individually. Well, what if I want to manage records in a collection as a case? If I wanted to manage all records that were similar, based on some metadata property or the folder name they're in, whatever it may be, I could set this to be yes. And now I can come in and I can enter a case file rule. And this case file rule is basically any metadata property or any other property that Gimmal Records captures off of your records. It could be something as simple as @folder. What's the name of the folder in SharePoint or on the file share that the record's in? That would allow you to put all of the records in that folder into a case, be able to approve disposition on the case, things like that. Maybe you have a metadata property in SharePoint called document type or organization, something like that. If it's a metadata property, not one of the properties that Gimmal starts with the @ symbol, if it's just a SharePoint metadata property, we tell you put it in brackets, and that indicates it's a metadata property. Now it's type in the name of the metadata field. Now we would create case files based on whatever value is in organization, right? And I'll show you some real world examples of this in a minute. I'm going to set this back to no for now. Then we have the originated and closed date. Well, originated date, I'm going to set to today. That's the date this record class was created. Close date, I typically will leave blank until the point I actually want to close a record class. And what happens when you close a record class is no new records can be added to it. Think of it like taping the box shut. Everything that's in the box is still there. Every record assigned to the record class is still there. No new ones can be added after the close date. So maybe, for example, you have administrative documents that are supposed to be kept for 5 years. And suddenly the retention changes to 6 for all new records falling into that record class. You could close the original record class, let the records there continue under their 5-year retention, create a new record class with 6-year retention, and new records start to get assigned there. Monthly volume isn't really used. Vital. Are you going to have vital records in this record class? Well, you could set this to possible, meaning the life cycle may determine that. You could set it to always. Any record assigned here is going to be flagged as a vital record. And you can run reports, see where your vital records are at if you need to. Record declaration. That's that concept where Gimmal Records will lock the record in its respective repository, right? Using SharePoint locking or file share permissions. preventing the record from being deleted while it's under records retention. Again, the choices here are always, never, and possible. Always means as soon as the record is assigned here, it's going to be declared. Never means never. It's never going to declare the record. The option won't be available in the menus. And possible, which is most common, means I may let the record lifecycle determine when that record declaration happens. Created plus 1 year, or let's say status metadata field gets set to final, or whatever condition you want to build into your lifecycle. Destruction certificates. Do you want to create a destruction certificate when your records are disposed of from this record class? Yeah, probably. And then archive. What's the archive? Well, the archive is metadata that gets kept after the record's been disposed of. If I set it to yes, you notice 2 new fields show up. I can just leave the record details to yes, the other 2 to no, and we'll capture about 6 specific pieces of metadata about a record after it's disposed of and keep those in the archive. We actually talked about that in the last session with the inbox. I can also keep all of the properties that Gimmal Records captures off of your records. We can store those as part of the archive and the audit trail for the record. So you have, at a record class level, the ability to be very specific on how little or how much data you keep for records that are disposed of, right? Which is quite nice. So let's save our new record class here. And here's ADM99, education. Notice the folder's flat. That indicates it's not a case-based record class. If I were to come up here to ADM02, you notice how the folder is open. That's my case-based record class, and I'm organizing records in this record class into record cases based on a common metadata property. And again, if we were to look at the settings here, I said yes. I used my metadata field called facility name. That's what's creating these case files for me automatically when the records come in from SharePoint or Box or wherever. All right. And again, if you have questions as I'm going through some of this stuff, feel free to throw them in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to them as we go through. Now, I created ADM99. What if I went, oh, I didn't really want to create it here. I meant to create it underneath internal services or underneath security management. Do I have to delete it and recreate it? No, I don't. If I just hold down my mouse button, I can drag and drop it. Notice how I can drag and drop here, and I can drag it underneath internal services. Now, when I come back here and expand this out, and we expand internal services, ADM99 is suddenly nested under that one, which is kind of nice. I also have the ability to do cut and paste. So I can come in here and say, you notice on the pull down, there's a cut option. Let me cut that. Now let me come up here to ADM and hit paste. And what we did is we cut that record class from underneath internal services. Notice the little triangle's gone, and we pasted it back in underneath administration. So it's really easy to restructure your file plan and move things around if you need to. You don't have to delete things and then go back and recreate them. Kind of nice. You may be aware, you may not be, that the file plan supports the concept of what we call inheritance. And that's going to come in handy with things like approval workflows and especially permissions. What if I want to set permissions on the administration record classes, all of them? And I want to give Marsha's not a records manager, right? Or Roger's not a records manager. But I want to give them permission to log into Gimmal Records and see records that are in these record classes, maybe approve them for disposition if they need to. How do I do that? Do I have to set their permissions on every single record class? The answer is no. See this little lock over here to the right of administration? That says I've set up unique permissions on the administration category, all of the children underneath administration will inherit whatever permissions I set up. The little check mark indicates approval groups, basically an approval workflow, right? Same thing. If I put the approval workflow on administration, all of the children will inherit that. So let's take a look at the permissions. Again, I'm going to go over here to my pull-down menu. I'm going to click on permissions, and that brings up the permissions that I have specifically given Roger on the administration record category. If I wanted to add someone else, I could click assign. I could select from any of my users or my groups. And so let's come in here and let's give Rebecca view and declare privilege also. I basically just select the name of the user, what permissions I want to grant, click save, and now Rebecca has those permissions also. If I decide later on I don't want to grant Rebecca those privileges, I can come in here and let's say close real quick. All right, expand that out. I can come in here and remove her from the permission set. We'll just unclick those, hit save. Now she's not there. Well, what does that mean? What does this actually do? Well, in another browser, I've logged in as Roger, and I'll point out that Roger has permissions to administration. Roger has permissions for human resources, and Roger has permissions for one other record class or record category called sales. What that means is if I come over here to another browser window where you notice I'm logged in here now as Roger, Roger's not a records manager. Roger is just a user in Gimmal Records. Roger only has 3 options on his ribbon. No file plan, no, none of a lot of the other options. He has dispose. He can see an inbox to approve records. He has manage. He can see records out in the system. And he has settings for things like for his personal settings. What Roger can see are only records in the record classes where he's been given permission. So you notice the GEN record class he can see records for, the sales record class, the administration records class, and the human resources records class. No other ones, right? We go to the next page. He can see everything in administration. He can't see legal. He can't see corporate. We didn't give him permissions to see those, right? So I can give Roger permissions to see records, to come in and view the details about records, all of those kind of things. But what's also really nice about it is I can tell Roger, you don't have declare privileges on any of the general record classes. So you notice I've got limited functions here on the pull-down menu. But I did give you declare privileges on administration, so now you've got more options here to declare the record, mark it obsolete, mark it superseded, if you need to. That's what permissions do. The other thing that the permissions do is let Roger see in his inbox all of the things that he has the ability to approve disposition for. Let's go back over to my other window for a moment, and let's take a look at approval groups. Now, approval groups are basically workflows that allow you to set up an approval process for any records in this record category. If I look at my approval, come down here, we go to approvers, and here you see I've got 2 levels of approvals. I've got a group that I've added users to that are my first level approvers. I have another group I've added users to that are my second level approvers. By setting that workflow up at administration, all of the children inherit that. Roger is in the first level approvers. You notice he sees he's in the first level approvers for HUM09 as well. He can come in here and approve records. And when he does, they'll show up then in my inbox as I'm in the second level approvers and I can approve those. So again, you can create permissions and approvals on individual record classes or at the top level and let it inherit down. However you need to do that. All right. We talked a little bit about inheritance. Now, here's the other thing I want to mention. You're doing changes to your file plan. How do you track those changes? Well, there's two ways. The first is if you're going to be making a lot of changes, updates to your file plan, I would suggest going into the reports and running a file plan report and then exporting that to Excel or to PDF as a historical version of what was there before you started making your changes. That becomes proof of what was. Second is every record class and record category has an audit trail associated to it. So you can see if I come in here that this record class was originally created back in July of 2020. We updated it in 2021 and actually associated a life cycle to it during the demo. And then somebody went, oh, I didn't mean to do it there. So they removed it. And then there's been a couple of other updates along the way here. The audit trail on the category or on the record class itself, here's our one for ADM 99, shows we created it today, it was updated, and then updated again as I made some changes to the properties. You always have the audit trail on the record class and the record category as well to show any changes that were made and who made those changes and on what date. Okay. But again, if you go into the monitor screen, you go to reports, and there's a report here. There's a file plan report. I would highly recommend before you do a bunch of changes, you run this report and then export it out to Excel. And then the last thing I'll talk about here before we open it up for the questions is, do I have to do all this by hand? What if I want to make a bunch of changes or we're going to add a bunch of new record classes? Well, the answer, or what if you're just setting up Gimmal Records for the first time, right? You have the ability to actually create your file plan in a spreadsheet. So we can give you a spreadsheet template. You can put your record classes, all the different levels into this spreadsheet in the form that we specify. You can tell it your life cycle information. You can tell it all your retention periods, even your triggers. All of this information can be put into an Excel spreadsheet. And then there's actually an import tool that's part of the Gimmal Records suite that allows us to import this spreadsheet into Gimmal Records to create or add to an existing file plan or to create a new file plan from scratch. So maybe you've got a third file plan you want to create in here. You can set up the spreadsheet. Gimmal, our client success team, can do the import and help you get all that set up. So with that, I run a little long. I'm going to stop talking, flip it back to Marcia.
Okay.
And
yeah, good info, Dean. That's always the best part of these, even if it's longer than we planned. It's good information for everybody. We do have a few questions, but as a reminder, if anybody does have questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A area on the bottom or top of your Zoom bar, however that's set up. Dean, first question we have is, how does file plan management in Gimmal differ from a tool like Virgo?
So yeah, there are tools out there like Virgo from Access, and there are some other tools that are really what I will call retention schedule management tools, right? They are planning tools. They are tools that are like kind of have databases behind them that go out and research and look at all the citations and all the legal codes and everything else that drive your retention schedule. So they're very good at helping you maintain when you need to make changes or updates to your retention schedule, what's new, what changes, year to year or whatever. They're very good at kind of doing that tracking and that management of the information about your retention schedule. What they don't do is actually apply any records policy. That's where Gimmal Records comes in. So we can take an export of a retention schedule from something like Virgo, put it into our spreadsheet form, and import that into Gimmal Records to begin creating or updating, a file plan if there are a large number of updates to make. Realistically, if there's only 2 or 3 or 4 updates you need to make quarterly or annually, it's just as easy to go into the file plan and do it quickly by hand versus the whole export, move it over, do an import, validate it, all of that.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. Yeah. Second question we got, does Gimmal manage the legal citations, and where can I store this information?
Yeah, so great question. The the legal citations can be stored in that free-form text that I talked about. So if I pop back in here real quick, you could put the legal citation information in here. If we just come in and look at one of our record classes here, you could store the citation information in either one of these fields. That's one place. You also have the option of storing as part of the specific retention period. So you can come in here and you notice there's the legal authority field here and the actual retention. You could store it here as well, whatever makes the most sense for you. That's where Gimmal Records allows you to put that information.
Okay. And we do have, excuse me, we have one more. Can I have more than one condition in the case file rule?
Not today, no. The case file conditions are kind of a single property or single piece of metadata. Can't
Okay.
have multiples.
Okay, great. That's it. That's it on the questions. So we'll wrap up, and want to thank everybody for joining us today for this session. We will send out the recording after, so be on the lookout for that email. We also post these on Gimmal's YouTube channel. So if you've missed past sessions, you could also go out there and look for that, but we'll be sending out this information. As a reminder, we offer these education sessions twice per month across our big 3 products, Gimmal Records, Gimmal Discover, and Gimmal Physical. Our next session is scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th, and that's going to be focusing on our Gimmal Discover product. But the next Gimmal Records session will be Tuesday, May 21st. So please register for that if you have not done so. Our Gimmal events page on our website has all of that information and registration too. If you have any suggestions for future education sessions for things you'd like to see, please reach out. You can email me, marcia.shields@gimmal.com. We'll be happy to get something on the list for you. That's it all. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.